And welcome back. Here we are, another week, another outstanding outdoor set of performances. We had several big meets. You had the Texas relays, you had the Florida relays, you had the Oregon relays, you had the Battle at the Bayou, and you had the Stanford Invitational, amongst many others. This was a great weekend for track and field action, even though in several of the meets, weather did not hold up or there were injuries. But we still managed in this weekend to grab 18 number ones on the women's side and 9 number ones on the men's side. And in today's recap, we are going to focus on the top five performances from each gender, top five female performances as well as the top five male performances, which are all number one marks. And so, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started right away. And we'll go to the Texas relays first. We had Victoria Cameron of Tarleton State, who has just continued to shine. She burst on the scene really kind of last year. She is also a soccer player. But this year, although she has got this short, stout running form, she is insanely quick. She ran that 7:09 indoors, tied for number one in the nation. And here she is now, number one outdoors, win legal 11:01. Almost sub 11 seconds in her first outdoor outing. Keep in mind, Olympic champion 200 meters, Gabby Thomas clocked 11 flat. And yes, that Miss Thomas has a much longer season than Victoria. However, that is a great start to an outdoor season for Victoria, especially coming off what was a pretty solid indoor season. She was quite impressive. She's among the best, not just in the country, but in the world. And I think she's going to have some questions to answer later on in her athletic career. Do I focus more on soccer or track? I think it's track. Track should be the answer, Victoria, by the way. 11:01, great performance, outstanding number one mark, and what a way to kick off the outdoor season, especially at one of the toughest meets, the Texas Relays. Next, we had another eye popping performance, and for me, this was my performance of the weekend until we get to Jane. But Ella Onojuevo of LSU, we've mentioned her multiple times here before. She's been able to put up great performances. She is a great, talented 400-meter sprinter. She's also pretty good at the 200, but I think it's very evident that she's a very strong 400-meter runner. And LSU just seems to have been the perfect fit for her, and they had a great weekend in that event in particular. Ella clocked 49:59. That is the fastest NCAA outdoor for a woman ever to debut sub 50 outdoors, your first outdoor meet. And that's one of the fastest times in the history of the NCAA. Although I've said this event has, over the past 6, 7 years, really five, well, let's just break it down to five, has just gone through dramatic shift. Um, it's now a foregone conclusion in order to be a threat, you have to run sub 50 and probably not just outdoors, preferably indoors as well, although that did not happen this indoor season. But for her to debut the outdoor season for LSU at 49:59, I believe she's the fastest 400-meter runner for Nigeria since the 90s, so almost 30 years. Very close to 30 years. I think the last time a Nigerian ran sub 50 was 1998. That is an insanely long time. And there were big hopes for her as a youth, and she's certainly living up to the hype. And again, I just said she's at the right school for her development style, and hats off to Coach Dennis Shaver and his staff for helping Ella put together what is a sensational mark. Now, moving to the 400 hurdles, we have Akala Garrett of South Carolina, formerly of Texas. She's another athlete that I will be mentioning when I do the transfer video, which is actually going to come this weekend. I've made a decision to actually go ahead and do it. I think it's now or never. But Akala Garrett of South Carolina, and the transfer for her was worked out phenomenally well. She shocked, I think, everybody. We knew that she was going to be competitive. She's a very strong 400 hurdler, but she debuted at 54:22. Holy smokes, that is a great time. 54:22 at the beginning of April. I think it's safe to say we may have a low 53-second 400 hurdler. And I didn't think we had that We had a great array of 400 hurdlers over the past couple of years. She's just going to keep on with the trajectory, and things are working out well for her. And hats off to Coach Tim Hall. He's doing a really good job with not just Jamisha Ford, not just with Zaya Akins, but Akala Garrett as well. And she's a key member of that 4x4, which won at the Florida Relays over a really strong Florida team. 3:25:13, I believe, is their time. Just really solid performances coming out of South Carolina. It's working out well, and she adds to what has really proven to be a strong uh, team with great depth. And one thing that has been missing since I think the heyday of the Curtis Fry South Carolina Gamecocks was their great 400 hurdlers. I mean, they had Lashonda Demas, Tiffany Ross, and I believe Renetta Alexander, not Tiffany, Crystal Canty. She was Siobhan Stoddard at the time before I believe she became Siobhan Nieto, married to Jamie Nieto. So she she's just just sort of a revelation, I think, for them, returning back to the great South Carolina teams of old. It just reminds me of what I saw when I was in high school and what I saw when I was in college. This is just how great they were. My hope is that they return to the Penn Relay soon, so I can see them in person. Next, we'll talk about Jane Hedengren, the headliner of the weekend. And the reason why we're going to talk about her as the headliner is because every chance she gets, she seems to have shined. At the beginning of her collegiate career a few months ago, she was in the shadow of Doris Lemengol, and Doris is still probably the queen bee when it comes to the steeplechase, but she outshined at the NCAA Indoor Championship, so she's already getting outdoor season started with the bang. She set the 10K record, uh, 30 minutes, 46.8 seconds for BYU. And they also had quite a weekend. They had three number one performances, all in the distance races. But even in their sprint performances, their sprinters look strong. BYU is building a title contender. And I think if they could just add some field points, it's going to be a wrap for a lot of people because they have the distance thing down. The coaching, I think the environment that they have an advantage there. It's really working well. 30, 46, 80, and this is after being in the top 10, I believe in the 5K as well. What is she going to attempt that 5K, 10K double? I think she might, and she's in great position to do so. Man, oh man, things working out so well for her. And I'm looking forward to seeing what she does later in her career. I don't think we've seen a talent this strong, this young. And yes, she's tall and lanky, but she just is poised and seems to not be phased by level of competition she's competing against because as many can say, the NCAA, courtesy of the NIL, has probably been more competitive than it ever has been. It's very hard, Division One, and you're competing against world class athletes and in some cases actual medalists. So when you're a youngster like Jane Hedengren and you're just performing at the top of the game and you're constantly breaking records, the sky the limit for her. I think she is clearly our new distance star. And the last young lady I would like to talk about is Ashley Callahan from Louisville. And I mentioned, really great field event programs. And Louisville was one of those programs I mentioned a couple weeks ago. And it was, kind of in passing, but I wanted to remind everyone they did have a previous NCAA champion, Taylor, I believe is her name, in the pole vault. And they have another pole vault star coming, and it is Miss Callahan. She is now the NCAA leader, 15 feet 1 inch, 4.60 meters. It's good to see another 15-foot pole vaulter in the field outside of the usual suspects, the Mole sisters, um, or the young ladies from, I believe it's South Dakota, one of the Dakotas. Forgive me for not having that written down, but Ashley Callahan, Louisville, 15 feet 1 inch. We're going to have to start mentioning her. Is she a direct threat for a national title? We can't even, put that out there because it clearly is like almost the Mole sisters and everybody else. But she's going to be a name that we have to remember and mention because of the mark. which is why I added her here. 15 feet. When you cross over that 15 feet barrier, that 4.6 barrier, you're in a completely different class. You're now amongst the elite of the elite because you could still be a great pole vaulter at 14.9, 14.10, 14.11, but when you get to the 15 feet and beyond, you are now special. And she certainly is. Moving to the men, we'll look at the 400, and man, oh man, has this young man proven to just really not miss a mark, miss a beat. He debuted, I think, a little too strong. And the young man I'm talking about is Jonathan Sims of Georgia. He did debut a little too strong indoors. However, his performance 44.62 is going to be forever etched. And he debuts his outdoor season at 44.76. He is the NCAA leader. That's not a personal best, as you know, you just heard me mention. So I think this is a great first start for him. For him to start at the beginning of April, he's got another long portion of the season that he really didn't kind of have in high school. In high school, you're not used to every meet that you go to it being a top tier meet. Your primary focus is the one or two invitationals that you go to. Then you got your regionals. Then you got whatever other qualifying meet, and then states. And then maybe you have a national championship, maybe. And if you're on the AAU circuit, it's about just getting to the final meet. When you're in college, you adjust to the fact that every single meet that you're competing against requires championship level performance, especially when you're a young freshman. And he's proven that. I think indoors, you know, because there's that cut in and it's not a full lap, it's easy for you to get frazzled and you may not want to push it, or you're maybe too much in your head as a youngster. But outdoors, it's just you in that lane, and I think it's going to serve him well. I think he's going to be a really big threat come later in the postseason, because that's a really strong debut for a freshman. Moving to the 10K again, we'll look at Habton Samuel, who's beginning his outdoor season with a strong performance. Habton Samuel of New Mexico clocks 27 minutes, 30.51 seconds. We know that he had the unfortunate mishap indoors, but I think outdoors it'll be fine. I think he maintains the statement that they were all jockeying per position. I think regardless of how you feel, I honestly do believe that's probably what he thought. I think outdoors he will probably be a little smarter, but he's also a defending champion. He still got hardware indoors. He still has plenty of hardware from past years. And so he's going to be a name that we constantly mention for that. And this was a great start to his outdoor season for him to not let that mishap throw him off, for him to show up at the Stanford Invitational, a big time meet early April, and put down a great solid time that kind of says, I don't have to run the 10K again, probably to regionals or maybe even conference time. So he's gotten his outdoor season started off in the right direction. Next, I want to talk about the LSU men's 4x4. And the reason why I wanted to bring them up is because the 4x4 this weekend took some hits, both men and women. On the men's side, Wanya McCoy of Florida went down, unfortunately. He had so many months off with a quad injury. I believe it was a tear, where he missed a lot of the indoor season and all of the outdoor season last year. And here he goes down in the open 100. I'm hoping that it's not too serious. My expectation is that he'll probably be rested until the beginning of May. 4 weeks may do him well if the injury is not very serious, but it threw off Florida's 4x4. LSU, on the other hand, was going up against Texas A&M at the bed of the Bayou, and three teams all clocked 301, and they came out victorious, 301-43. A strong group. This is an excellent debut to the outdoor season. Hats off to Coach Dennis Shaver and Benny Brazil, who is the men's sprints coach. Excellent work. 301 to begin your outdoor season after you had 304 indoors and you knew that you were capable of more. 301 is great for early April, because what it gives me is the signal that you're planning to go sub 3 minute outdoors. And they're going to need to do that if they want to be what I think they can be, which is a threat, not just in the SEC, but this is LSU. They're a threat to win that title in that event. And with all these injuries, all these changes, and what we've learned over the years, once we get to outdoors, we have to throw the times from the indoor 4x4 out often, specifically with the men, because outdoor is a very different game. And LSU has shown over the years that they are game. LSU, Florida, Texas A&M, those are the usuals. And we throw in the USCs and the South Carolinas and maybe eventually Georgia. But LSU was one of those mainstays, and they proved that again this weekend because they went up against real competition and came out victorious on their home track. Now, moving to the field on the men's side, let's give a little look to another pole vaulter. I don't know what it was about the pole vault this weekend, but they were stepping their games up. We have Anthony Meacham, yes, the indoor champion in the pole vault of Kansas, 19 feet and a quarter inch, 5.80 meters. He is our first 19-foot jumper of the outdoor season. And to me, that is the magic mark for you to be considered a title contender. However, he was already going to be that because he's the indoor champion. And Kansas has really done a great job of developing their pole vaulters. Granted, we've kind of leaned towards the Washingtons. Let's not forget about Kansas, too. Even though I didn't mention them, not enough, because here he is transitioning well to the outdoor season. Already over 19 feet, and it's only April. The best is yet to come for him. I'm hoping that he continues and that he even improves upon that mark. I'm not looking for him to be, um, you know, a world record holder or NCAA record holder. I'm just looking for him to be the number one guy. And moving to the long jump, our last person we'll speak on today, Tyler Nichols of Southern Miss. Um, and yes, I'm not talking about Oklahoma or Miami or Florida or Texas Tech or Texas, those great jump schools. We're talking about Southern Miss, which is also a pretty good program. Tyler Nichols broke the school record at Southern Miss, 26 feet, 5.5 inches, also known as 8.06 meters. That is a great mark. Granted, I know that we're expecting for the top jumpers to be in the 27 feet range. I want to make sure that we give a smaller school guy his proper due, because a mark like that against good competition is golden. No one at the Florida relays, Texas relays, at the Stanford Invitation, any of those big meets jumped what he jumped. He is the top guy in the NCAA, and he did it on a weekend where there was a lot of great competitive competition. A lot of big names jumped, and none of them jumped as impressively as him. Hats off to Tyler Nichols. I look forward to seeing what else he's going to do if he's going to be a major name. Because with a mark like that, he definitely has the potential to do so. Well, that is the recap. I do want to also highlight that, again, there were 18 number one marks. So there's plenty of, on the women's side, there's plenty of events that I didn't name. I just want to give a quick shout out to athletes like Emmy Scales of Kentucky. Kentucky really in their bag with their hurdlers. 12.75 for her, and also another really impressive performance from Alyssa Jones of Stanford. It was wind dated, but 22 feet 5 or 6.83 meters. I just wanted to highlight those two young ladies because this was some great marks. And I'm looking forward to what more this outdoor season brings. This past weekend threw me off. I mentioned my dissatisfaction with all of the meets happening at once. It's kind of like what we're seeing in the film space and in the streaming space. Everything is happening at one time, something gets left out. And I really do hate that. Um, I really had wished that the Texas Relays was last weekend and then everyone else was this weekend, because I think that the Texas Relays, looking at some of the videos, seeing that empty crowd, yes, it rained, but still, it's like there were so many schools that normally go to the Texas Relays that were at the Battle at the Bayou or that were at the Stanford Invite that could have been at the Texas Relays and even some of the Florida Relays. I mean, it was a disappointing sight to see, and I actually expected that to happen. It was the same at Florida Relays. It was the same at the Battle of the Bayou. None of the meets really had a strong presence because you spread out the fan base too much. So my hope is that some of these coaches or anyone who's listening who's familiar with the connections of those who design the schedule, how about for once we sit down and work and figure out, okay, what's the best situation not only for us to get fans here to support our teams, but to also have, TV money to improve the sport. I really do believe that the schools have a responsibility to take care of the sport, not just themselves. You can't just be selfish in that regard. There will be no sport unless we all work together. And so my hope is that moving forward, we stop having a bunch of meets at once. We kind of solidify. And as we know next week we're going to see a little bit less of the competition. But in a couple of weeks, we got the Mount Sac relays. We have the Tom Jones Memorial. And then a week after that, we have the Penn relays, which, I will be there in person. And I'm hoping in the future we get the USA versus the world back and we'll get more of those universities to compete. But I'm looking forward to what I think will be a great weekend. But as always, thank you so much for listening to me. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. As you see, I do get in the paint with you guys in the comment section. I love conversing with you. So please, your feedback is always well appreciated. And as always, again, thank you so much for supporting me. I'll see you later this week. We take a look at the transfer portal and what it has done for the athletes of this season.